Hello, YouTube world. I want to point out something that Kamala Harris mentioned at the Democratic National Convention that I don't think a lot of people noticed or heard, but she essentially predicted that we're going to have another pandemic, that this whole COVID plandemic that we've had the last 5 months or so is not the end of this, but that we're going to have another pandemic to follow behind it. So let's listen to the clip.
Earnest. It is not an equal opportunity offender. Black, Latino, and Indigenous.
And of course, we've got the satanic pentagram, inverted pentagram in a circle, and the death to America symbolism here, death to America.
Indigenous people are suffering and dying disproportionately. And this is not a coincidence. It is the effect of structural racism. Joe will bring us together to end this pandemic and make sure that we are prepared for the next one.
To make sure we are prepared for the next one. Also notice it looks like she has on a purple suit here. The nice color purple for the NWO. Her master. So let's play that again.
End this pandemic and together to end this pandemic will bring us together to racism. Joe will bring us together to end this pandemic and make sure that we are prepared for the next. Joe will bring us together to end this pandemic and make sure that we are prepared for the next. Will bring us together to end this pandemic and make sure that we are prepared for the next one. Pandemic and make sure that we are prepared for the next one. Pandemic and make sure that we are prepared for the next one. And make sure that we are prepared for the next one.
Okay. So Joe Biden will make sure we're prepared for the next pandemic. Where have we heard this type of thing? This is from my video. Let's see, what was the name of this one? Predictive Programming and Lesser Magic back in April. And I want to play this clip. This was Anthony Fauci in 2017, 3 years ago. I first want to play a clip of Anthony Fauci from 2017.
Given, as you heard from the introduction, that I have been around for a while and have had the opportunity and the privilege and the pleasure of serving in 5 administrations, I thought I would bring that perspective to the topic today, is the issue of pandemic preparedness. And if there's one message that I want to leave with you today based on my experience, and you'll see that in a moment, is that there is no question that there will be a challenge to the coming administration in the arena of infectious diseases, both chronic infectious diseases in the sense of already ongoing disease, and we have certainly a large burden of that, but also there will be a surprise outbreak. And I hope by the end of my relatively short presentation, you will understand why history, the history of the last 32 years that I've been the director of NIAID, will tell the next administration that there's no doubt in anyone's mind that they will be faced with the challenges that their predecessors were faced with.
So did you hear what Fauci just said? He spoke about a pandemic, and he said there's no doubt in his mind there will be a surprise outbreak that this Donald Trump administration will have to deal with. How in the world would he possibly know that unless he was already part of the group that was planning this?
Challenge to the coming administration in the arena of infectious diseases, both chronic infectious diseases.
Let's play that again.
Will tell the next administration that there's no doubt in anyone's mind that they will be faced with the challenges that their predecessors were faced with. Challenge to the coming administration in the arena of infectious diseases, both chronic infectious diseases in the sense of already ongoing disease, and we have certainly a large burden of that, but also there will be a surprise outbreak. And I hope by the end of my relatively short presentation, you will understand why history, There will be a surprise outbreak, and I hope by the end of there will be a surprise out diseases, both chronic infectious diseases in the sense of already ongoing disease, and we have certainly a large burden of that, but also there will be a surprise outbreak, and I hope by the end of my relatively short presentation, there will be a surprise outbreak.
Okay, so 3 years ago, Anthony Fauci makes it clear there's no doubt in his mind there will be a surprise outbreak in the area of infectious disease and pandemic for the Donald Trump administration. If you had any doubts that this man was involved in the planning of this pandemic and that he was serving the New World Order, this ought to make it crystal clear what is really going on with this Dr. Anthony Fauci. Just unbelievable. And then we'll play the clip from Bill Gates from 3 years ago, the TED Talk, warning us about a coming pandemic. Next, I want to play a clip from a Bill Gates TED Talk from 5 years ago.
Today, the greatest risk of global catastrophe doesn't look like this. Instead, it looks like this. If any...
Let's check out that image again.
Instead, it looks like this.
5 years ago, talking about a global pandemic, and boy, that sure looks like the coronavirus to me. What do you think?
If anything kills over 10 million people in the next few decades, it's most likely to be a highly infectious virus rather than a war. Not missiles, but microbes. Now, part of the reason for this is that we've invested a huge amount in nuclear deterrence, but we've actually invested very little in a system to stop an epidemic. We're not ready for the next epidemic.
And there you go, Bill Gates warning us of a coming epidemic that could kill millions and saying we're not ready for it. Here's another clip of Bill Gates speaking. Okay, so let's look at let's look now at a clip of Bill Gates from Stephen Colbert's show, where he once again warns us of another coming pandemic.
If my man was wearing this, I would be all over him. That
Sorry
smells really good. Smells like my guy's cologne.
Okay.
Of course, we have to have an ad blurb in. I'm sorry about that. Okay, let's play this clip from Bill Gates on Stephen Colbert's show, warning of a coming pandemic, Pandemic 2.
Well, Bill, since you tried to warn us about this pandemic and we didn't listen, what's the next thing you're warning us about that's going to happen 5 years from now that we're not listening to at the present?
Well, I didn't want to be right. What I wanted to do was...
I understand. I'm not saying you won. Everybody loses. Nobody wins with us. And I'm not saying that you're this is not an end zone dance. I'm just saying... What
and of course, notice the demonic laughter from Gates.
else are we not listening to that we need to take action on now?
Well, the idea of a bioterrorist attack is kind of the nightmare scenario because they're a pathogen with a high death rate would be picked. Now, the good news is, I'm not trying to depress you, it's tough enough
Too late.
right now.
Too late.
Most of the work
And they're both having a good laugh about it.
we're going to do to be ready for pandemic 2, I call this pandemic 1.
And by the way, Stephen Colbert was a guest at Epstein Island, at Pedo Island. He was one of the guys that's been down there to Epstein's Island.
Most of the work we'll do to be ready for that are also the things we need to do to minimize the threat of bioterrorism.
Well, Mr. Gates, thanks so much for being here. Thanks so much for the efforts you and
Gates
your organization are doing.
can't control his glee. He's just laughing his butt off at all this.
Find a cure for this, and we'll see you again.
Terrorist attack is kind of the
that we need to take action on.
So here we go. This was late April.
On now.
Well, the idea of a bioterrorist attack is kind of the nightmare scenario because they're a pathogen with a high death rate would be picked. Now, the good news is, I'm not trying to depress you, it's tough enough right now, that most of the work we're going to do to be ready for pandemic 2.
So he's already naming it, the work we're going to do to be ready for pandemic 2.
It's tough enough right now, that most of the work we're going to do to be ready for pandemic 2. Most of the work we're going to do to be ready for pandemic 2, I call this pandemic 1.
Okay, and one more thing I wanted to point out about this of a coming pandemic was Anthony Fauci had talked a little bit about this, warning us about what could potentially be this next plandemic. And he talked about this G4 swine flu, and you can Google this on your own time back in June and early July. Now he's saying nothing to fear so far from G4 swine flu. But Fauci has been coming out and talking about this new swine flu out of China that resembles H1N1 from 2009. So that may, could possibly be the next plandemic that Fauci, has talked about, that Gates has talked about, and that now Kamala Harris is warning about. Here's a side note on Kamala Harris. I received this email from someone last week. It was interesting. So here we see her shaking hands with Alexander Soros, George Soros' son lately. Notice what she's wearing, the black and white stripes for Freemasonry. And here was what was the caption below that photo. Alexander Soros, son of George Soros, and Kamala Harris are pictured here after their final interview in Biden's VP vetting process. This was the moment, Soros said, when I decided she would be the pick. I told my dad and he agreed. The rest was just a formality. George Soros, through his son, is hand-picking our next VP. I can't say that's 100% fact, but why would I doubt it? I mean, in reality, we know that Kamala Harris is a complete puppet of the elites, so probably a good chance that's very genuine. Couple other things I wanted to point out. You noticed at the DNC, they kept on talking over and over again about how this election was a battle for the soul of our nation. Biden frames 2020 as battle for the soul of the nation. I noticed John Kasich said that, Chuck Schumer said that, Bernie Sanders said that. They all talked about how this is a battle for the soul of our nation. So they're actually telling you the truth about that. They're just not telling you that they're trying to really trying to steal and take as many souls for Satan as they can. So a couple more quick clips here.
Trump's populist appeal. They've nominated a guy who first ran for president 33 years ago.
So wouldn't you know, Biden first ran for president 33 years ago. And I'm going to get into that a lot more in another video about just how often we're seeing the number 33 popping up in mainstream media.
That meant they had to...
And I want to talk a little bit about just the amount, how pathetic the DNC was, the amount of fakery that we saw.
Take a look at this. This is standing behind Kamala.
So here we see Kamala Harris in her purple blazer. And they'd had this is all virtual, no one there, because they're just uber fanatical about the social distancing and the mask. And this corny deal where they put up this fake video board of people clapping, and these people are either getting paid or they're the biggest idiots in this country. But look at how pathetic this is. They couldn't even find, let's see, They couldn't even find 30 people to do this. They had to repeat these videos. Here you see the same person there and there, there and there, there and there. 3 of these are repeat images.
For fans after the address.
They couldn't even find enough people to clap for her through Zoom.
It's hard to find a room full of people actually clapping, so they just invented some people.
And something else I want to point out is just how fake this convention was. Is if you'll notice, Joe Biden, when he gave his acceptance speech, he gave it indoors, and then he came out outdoors in a mask to see the crowd, and he only took off the mask for about 30 seconds. I'm not even sure that was Joe Biden that came outside, that it may have been a body double. Like the lower part of his face from his nose down didn't even look like Joe Biden. So this is during the acceptance speech, and look at how fake this image is. So first off, you see this line down here by the ground. So this is clearly, this background is fake. This is either a computer image or a video screen, and it looks like the floor's even fake, that this isn't even a blue floor maybe. This is clearly not a real flag. This is a computer image. And then we see, look at the face of Kamala Harris's husband, this line through it in this like triangle image and the different colors. So this was like dubbed in and fake. They weren't really there with each other, it would appear, but just all computer images and fakery. Hollywood put this whole thing together, and even at that, they couldn't even make it look realistic. It was just so blatantly obvious how fake and poorly done it was. And let me play an image of that. So, you know, here you see it, and you've got the computer images or the video screens in the background, then the floor, which when you watch them touching, when you see them touching this floor, it almost doesn't even look real to me, like the floor's a computer image. These flags are clearly computer images, and I'm not sure this lectern is even real. This may be a computer image, and I don't think that they're even here together in the same place.
I'm officially accepting the nomination of the Democratic Party 33 years after he first ran for president.
What do you know? There's that 33 again. I don't think I even picked that up the first time I watched this.
Nomination of the Democratic Party, officially accepting the President Joe Biden, officially accepting the nomination of the Democratic Party.
And as you can see, something just looks off here. You can tell they're not in a real room together, and this isn't a real room. These are computer images or screen visuals.
33 years after he first. 33 years after he.
33 years.
Party. 33 years after he first ran for president.
And it looked like Jill Biden, his wife, almost walked through this flag in the background.
President. He's not known for his president. He's not known for president. He's not known for his public speaking, but known for his.
So Joe Biden gave the speech supposedly here, which was indoor inside a building in Delaware, and then he came outside to wave in a mask at his fans and followers. What I believe happened, I think that they filmed this over the course of several weeks from Joe Biden's home, that it was a 17-minute speech, and we know Joe Biden, he can't speak for 2 minutes without falling apart, let alone 17 minutes. So I think they literally, pieced together and taped different segments over a course of several weeks from Joe Biden's home, and then they used computer images or visual screens to put this together. And then they had him briefly come outside. He never, I don't believe he ever gave a live speech on the last Thursday of the Democratic Convention. I think that was all taped previously from his home. And then they showed him coming outside in a mask to greet the supporters. And he only took off the mask for about 30 seconds. I'm not even sure that was really Joe Biden there, but it may have been a body double. So just incredible the amount of fakery and how cheesy it was. and what little respect Hollywood has for you, how dumb they think you are, that they believe they can pull this off, that Joe Biden does a pre-recorded speech that's not live, and then he walks outside and he has a mask on. It may not have really been him. You know, Donald Trump gave his full speech outside. You could tell it was live with the crowd. Why wouldn't Joe Biden have given that speech outside in front of the crowd in their cars that was gathered there? Asking yourself that question. If that speech was real that Joe Biden gave and it was live, why did he have to give it indoors, then come outside in a mask to wave at the crowd? So, anyhow, in closing, so this was what Kamala Harris had to say at her speech.
And make sure that we are prepared for the next one. And make sure effect of structural racism. Joe will bring us together to end this pandemic and make sure that we are prepared for the next one. And make sure that we are prepared for the next one.
So Kamala Harris predicting another pandemic, just like Bill Gates did and like Anthony Fauci is. So predictive programming for you. So anyhow, God bless everyone. Have a wonderful night, and I will talk to you real soon.